evening and hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to another exciting recap of the New Japan Pro Wrestling's G1 Climax Tournament 2021. It's edition number 31. We're going to be going over nights 9, nights 10 right here. I'm MrWarrenHayes. How you doing? Host of the MrWarrenHayes show that airs right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, where I record everything, most of what I do right here live on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Because yes, I do these because G1 time is exciting, and of course I do my own wrestling podcast every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern is when we record. Then we elaborate on a lot of things. But it's G1 season, and I like the G1 season. I think it's a fun time. Has it been a fun time this year? Well, it's been uneven. It's been up. There's been ups and there's been downs. Happy to report that it feels like we're back on an uptick here. We're back on an upswing in regards to the upcoming matches, the upcoming nights that we still have to do, because we're halfway through it at this point, right? And like I mentioned on my previous recap, this is usually the time where, the guys sort of slow down a little bit. It's a very taxing environment in which they're wrestling. The G1 is very rough overall on a person's body. So this is usually when, they sort of pump the brakes a little bit, which is probably why we didn't get such great quality wrestling so far. But hey, not so far. Like over the past couple of nights, it's been a little rough. Great start, couple of nights 7 and 8, definitely skippable. But here we are back. We're gonna jump right in. We're gonna start with night number 9 here. Some A block action. This happened on October 3rd, just a couple of days ago. Yesterday, right? This is why I'm recording this on the 4th. It's not a couple of days ago. It's just yesterday. Started the evening with Kenta defeating Gradocon. So I'd say a couple of surprises on this evening. Kenta versus Gradocon. I was sort of wondering, right, how far Gradocon was going to go with his undefeated streak, essentially. I felt like he was going to hit a wall at some point. Gradocon's biggest matches are still yet to come for him. Like he's already wrestled. Well, Zack Saber Jr., who it turned out to be an imposing figure in the tournament. I don't think anyone had him like in their tippy top tier, but right now he's probably the dominating force of Block A. And Okan already wrestled Kenta on that night too. But he still has Shingo, he still has Ibushi, even has Ishii left. So there's still a couple of big wrestlers in the chamber left for him. It's not going to be an easy walk in the park. But the match between, we're coming back to the match, right? The match between Kenta and Gradocon started off with them cutting promos on each other, which is not an occurrence that happens frequently in New Japan. But basically, and of course, this is the night where they lean heavy into promos, and Chris Charlton isn't there. He's not he's not on this leg of the trip for some reason. So of course we don't get live translations. But they cut promos on each other, and it's understood because someone told Kevin Kelly, because it's kind of important to the story of this match, or at least, it's an overlying stake here, that the losers will have to dogeza, which means to take a deep, subservient, humiliating bow to the other, right? So there was a little more, not just the 2 points, there was, some pride here at stake. Which was kind of fun. Kenta in this match, he sees his early offense get neutralized, so he goes to stalling. He tries to go straight after Gradocon, but Gradocon, he's a big, tough guy. He's like, well, I'll just go to stall then. He even sneaks under the ring and attacks Gradocon from under the ring. They set up a kick chop challenge in the middle of the ring, but Gradocon picks the leg into a leg lock, which was pretty cool. Gradocon tries a combination of holds and strikes. Kenta does his best to get under his skin in the meantime, which is always, it's always a Kenta move to do this. Gradocon hits a gourd buster. He hits a sliding drop kick while Kenta is in the Tree of Woe. Kenta eventually gets a draping DDT, and they start slapping each other like open hand palm strikes, like big time. They go in and out of finishers. There's a ref bump, and Kenta goes for the chair. He puts it on Gradocon's chest, who's laid prone in the ring, basically. And he puts Gradocon's hat on to jump off the top rope and do a double stomp through the chair. I thought Kenta looked like a gnome. Kind of looked like a gnome. He gets a baseball bat. Gradocon blocks the shot. The ref is back up on his feet. He thinks Gradocon used it. Kenta takes advantage of it, rolls him up for the win. So Kenta gets his 2 points here. After the match, Kenta grabs the mic and starts taunting, or requesting at least, the Dogeza submission, not submission, but subservient bow. He wants it. He's expecting it. Gradocon, he starts to lower himself to do it, and then he chokeslams him instead. There you go. Hey, seeds for maybe a potential feud. Fun, strong match here. I liked it. Gradocon has been a winner so far. I liked it. I thought this was a good match. Didn't overstay its welcome. Of course, it was the opening match, so they're never very long. Fun stuff. Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Pimp, defeated Tonga Loa. Again, the Bullet Club getting along. They do the too sweet thing. But then they counter each other's offense, and then in a match they keep doing too sweet attempts, and that's cool. Loa pulls out a standing moonsault for this one. He's in control for the better part of the first third of this match. Yujiro hits a tope suicida, fisherman buster suplex, and an Olympic slam as well. Loa hits a sit-out powerbomb. Then Yujiro tries to go for the big juice, but Loa reverses out of it to hit the ape shit, and that's that. Did I say? I did say Yujiro Takahashi defeated Tonga Loa. I apologize. That was wrong. Absolutely wrong. My notes are all messed up. Should prepare better? What the hell is this? Tonga Loa defeated Yujiro for this. And giving Tonga Loa his first victory, despite having 4 points because of the Naito bump. It was good to see ape shit. Not only is it a convincing looking finisher, but it has a great name. Tomohiro Ishii defeated Zack Saber Jr. in, well, I wouldn't call it a surprise. I wouldn't call it a surprise. Because, if only because Zack Saber Jr. has been on a tear. But it is entirely conceivable, it's not outside of the realm of possibility, that Tom Ishii would defeat our boy Zack here. Saber early on here rolls up Ishii, and he kicks out at a razor thin 2.9, like almost a 3 count. And of course, this is Marty Asami who's refereeing, so he probably, let that one linger a little more because he's the worst referee in the business. Zack Saber Jr. actually got mad at him, and I can't blame him. Saber tries to stand up to Ishii's chops. He tries to bait him into an arm submission, but Ishii's like, nah, I'll beat you up instead. And he just starts wailing on him. But eventually, Saber starts working his magic, starts working the right arm. He goes for a PK and it's blocked. Saber eats a German suplex. Saber nicely avoids and reverses a sliding lariat into an armbar, which got a little pop from me. Ishii interrupts a kick for a leg hyperextension and a kick followed by a big lariat that takes Zack Sabre Jr. down. They have a nice little sequence of fast kicks, clotheslines, and pounces, which was a very, very dynamic, that nice explosive lead into the later third of the match. And then, once we're into the later third, Ishii starts getting wrapped up quite a lot in Saber's stuff. There's these great visuals of Ishii, though, stomping on his head, on Zack Sabre Jr.'s head while he's all tied up. And eventually he hits the brainbuster for the win. This was, effectively speaking, this was Zack's least effective match of the tournament so far. Like, he was not as much in control as in the other fights. He couldn't string as much offense together as he did in all of his other bouts so far. So in the story that they were telling here, I think what they were saying is, look, it's either one of two things. Saber was having an off night, which can happen, right? Completely normal. Or he was a little too cocky, which in the case of Zack Sabre Jr. is more than entirely possible. Maybe he overestimated here, overshot what this was all about. So listen, I thought this was a well-constructed match. It made a lot of sense. Ishii was very much in control here. Wouldn't say he had a counter for everything Zack Sabre Jr. was doing, but he was ready to fight Zack, and it showed. Zack just couldn't hit his stride, couldn't hit his groove. Saber is effective once things really start to flow. When he starts moving in and out of moves, when he's really in control, when he's dictating the pace, as commentary likes to say. Dictating the pace of the match is so important. But in the case of Zack, I think it really is the difference maker between a victory and a loss. It didn't quite work out here. Tom Ishii gets his second victory of the tournament and 2 points. And in our main event, we got Kota Ibushi defeating Shingo Takagi. Ibushi hits the springboard missile dropkick early on that sends Shingo to the ropes, and he runs back with a running lariat to the back of his head. They go to the outside, and this is the first that we see Shingo dealing with his elbow. Because you'll recall, in the previous Block A night, which would have been night 7, if my math is all right, and I always doubt my math because I'm terrible at it. I'm not a numbers guy. So hopefully I'm able to still properly arithmetize 9 minus 2 to 7. Yes, on night 7, Shingo had his arm completely destroyed, worked over by our boy Kenta, who just worked on it. And he worked on it. He tore it up. He chair shotted it repeatedly. Like it was wear and tear on a shoulder that had already previously been worked on by one Zack Sabre Jr. So I was really curious to see how Shingo's arm was going to work tonight. How much of a detriment it would be. And I wouldn't say it was a complete detriment, because I think Kota is a little more honorable as far as wrestlers go, but he did go to the arm a few times in this match. But early on, Shingo is selling the elbow. It hurts. He can't quite, he's. You can tell, some of the offense isn't quite as effective. They trade some slaps. Ibushi hits a nice IE moonsault. They go on each other. Ibushi hits a half and half suplex on Shingo as well. They just keep laying into each other. Like, this was a physical match, girls and boys. Shingo hits a made in Japan, a pumping bomber, and then it turns into a really hard hitting affair. Like they were just destroying each other. And it's crazy because a guy like Kota Ibushi, I don't think he gets enough credit to how malleable he can be to other people's styles. You know, it's a compliment that we typically reserve to one Kenny Omega as it pertains to their capacity of being able to adapt to another wrestler's style and work that wrestler's match. I don't think Kota gets enough of credit for that, because he, as much as he's able to do the very flashy, grandiose high spots, very aerial, very fast, he's able to get down and dirty and get really physical with a guy like Shingo, which is his bread and butter. When we get towards the end here, Kota hits a Kamagoye, and Shingo kicks out of it. Ibushi tries again for the Kamagoye. He gets lifted into the Last of the Dragon, but Ibushi reverses out with a Poison Rana and a nice, swift little sequence there that was really, really pretty. Good stuff. Then he comes back with a Kamagoye to the back of the neck, and then sets himself back up and hits a proper one right on the button. Kota Ibushi pins the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Guess who's got a shot lined up? That makes two of them. Zack and Kota. And this was good stuff. This was good stuff. I liked it. Thought it was a very, very strong match. It's kind of my cup of tea, not gonna lie. This kind of match is right up my alley. Nice, strong, fun match. Everyone worked hard. Is it a match of the year? No. There are no matches. No match of the years here, kids. It's not a G1 of MOTYs. There has, at this point, usually, typically, you at bare minimum have one. Not here, not today. We can take a look at the standings then, which are displayed for everyone to see if you're watching this on YouTube right now. Zack Saber Jr., Gradocon, Kenta, and Kota Ibushi all tied with 8 points. All tied for the lead. Toriano, Shingo, Takagi are at 6 points each. Oh, and Tomohiro Ishii as well. So 3 dudes for the number 2 who are tied at 6 points. And Yujiro and Tangaloa both at 4 points. Very interesting. We're going to talk about Block B, but as it's, and of course, Tetsuya Naito's been eliminated, disqualified, forfeited. Is the word I was looking for. He forfeited. But here's what's really interesting, right? This is what's most interesting, if you ask me. Look at how the field here is still completely up in the air. You've got at least 7 guys in Block A who still conceivably have a chance without necessarily starting to pull out these crazy schemes of, well, if so-and-so loses all his matches, then Tangaloa has a possibility, Like Loa and Takahashi still mathematically are still in this. If my math is okay, which there's a fair chance it's not. But seriously, like 7 people in Block A, we're about at the halfway point, and there's still so much that can happen. There's still, like, it's there's still not a clear course here as to who's going to main event the block. And our champ is at 6. Shingo is at 6 here. Very interesting. I mean, he's just one behind the leaders. And he still has a chance. He still has a chance, especially if Zack and Kota lose a couple of matches. because that's basically where he has the tiebreakers at, right? In case you're new to the G1, if there is ever a tie between two wrestlers or three wrestlers, to determine who wins the block, we go to tiebreakers. So the tiebreaker is whoever has the win over the wrestler. So for instance, if the G1 were to end with Zack Saber Jr. at 12 points and Shingo Takagi at 12 points, Zack would win because he holds the tie-breaking win over Shingo Takagi. He defeated him earlier in the block. So this is where it's going to start to get interesting when you start positing and sort of wondering. It's like, okay, so that's cool. Let's move on to Block B. October 4 just happened earlier today or late last night, depending on how you want to look at it. All right, here we go. So I wake up this morning. I have regular work. Got to take care of stuff. I can't, stay awake these days over weekdays at 4 a.m. and watch Japanese wrestling. I just can't. So I'm like, okay, I sit around, and I do my work and I watch whatever I missed over lunch, and then I finish it off usually when I get home, after dinner, something like that. But so I wake up this morning and my timeline is going nuts for the G1. And all I see is Chase Owens won. Chase Owens pinned Tanahashi clean. I can't believe Chase Owens won. And I don't mind being spoiled this stuff. Like, not unless it's like, big matches, like maybe the block finals. That kind of stuff irks me. The tournament finals, definitely. But I don't mind being spoiled. And if I don't want to be spoiled, I go on Twitter and I mute the keywords, I mute the hashtags. I'm an adult. I know how to use Twitter. Don't go around screaming at people, no spoilers. I can manage I can filter out my own timeline. I can manage this. I'm a big boy. So it really didn't bother me, but I did wake up and I'm like, holy shit, Chase Owens defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi? And I was kind of stoked to see the match. Like, I was excited to see this. And guess what? Owens works the knees. She does the most basic Tanahashi strat. He works the knees and it was effective. He's using his smarts. He's pulling moves, playing a little psychological game. And in the meantime, commentary, what was that? Commentary is putting over the fact that earlier in the day, Chase Owens called Jay White and said, hey, do you have any advice on how to beat old Tana here? Like, they were setting the seeds throughout the match. And I was like, okay, cool. So when the result came, I wasn't all that surprised. It's an upset win. It's probably the biggest upset of the tournament so far. Because he beat Tana clean as a whistle with his finisher, with the package pile driver. Could not defeat a single person with it in this tournament. He tried to pull it out multiple times and was always reversed. So I'm looking at my timeline. I realize sometimes I have a nicely curated timeline, and I like that. I know a lot of people bitch and moan about Twitter and their Twitter experience and what it is, but you can take control of your Twitter timeline. It requires some work, some long-term storytelling, but you can get it done. So I'm seeing some things out of people that I respect, some of my peers, some of my friends on the timeline. They're saying, I can't believe, look at all these people mad that Chase won. Like, why are they mad that Chase won? And I was able to narrow it down to two things. Well, not that I was able to narrow it down. I already had a notion as to why, and it did turn out to be two things. There's two reasons to be mad, or there's two reasons people are mad here. And the first reason, the first thing that I saw, is that for a lot of people, Chase Owens is problematic. He was part of speaking out. Allegations about things with underage girls. They were out there, they're on Reddit, they're still on Reddit. Chase tried to brush it off as an angle, but, he didn't look good. The situation is still very much up in the air. There's no proper resolution to it. There's people saying, there's even women who haven't come forward because they're afraid. And honestly, people shouldn't do that. They shouldn't, not that they should not. Well, anyone who has allegations should feel like they can come forward. But I also understand why some people would be afraid or don't want to go through with it. But if you have that information, if you know that there are people being like, I wish I could come forward, and you go out on Twitter, you publicly say it. I know people out there who don't want to come forward. That's not cool. That doesn't help anything, and it doesn't help credibilize any actual allegations or statements being put out by people who've been abused. You don't do that. These people come to you in confidence, and then you go on Twitter, I know of other people who did. Because there's a put up or shut up mentality to a certain degree, and it's not your place to tell whether these people are, and it's not your place to tell if these victims should come forward or not, or that there are victims, other victims out there. That's ridiculous, and it doesn't help the cause. It helps no one. So if people think that Chase Owens is problematic and they're mad that he won, that is absolutely fair. I think it is an absolute fair assessment. I mean, why did this guy get a huge win when he's so problematic? And I can get that. I can understand why some people are some people respond like that to these types of situations. I myself, not going to lie, in certain circumstances as well, Some wrestlers I was very glad to not see on television anymore. That's fine. So to me, that's a legitimate reason. If that's something that you consider that's important to you, that comes across, and it's a fair reason to be like, Chase Owens. But if you want to look at it from a wrestling standpoint, and if you're mad that Chase Owens won because, he's an under guy, and, Hiroshi Tanahashi is, he's the ace, he's the John Cena of the company to a certain degree, I was like, if this is why you're angry, then you have not been watching the G1. You just haven't. Because Chase right now has been wrestling the best stuff he's been wrestling in New Japan so far. From his entire start, he's working hard. He's working super, super hard. Because look, this is a G1 where a lot of people that maybe would have ended up in the G1 aren't there for multiple reasons. For COVID reasons, for COVID reasons, personal reasons, for being sent off into the United States, right? But Chase is still there. Chase is still doing he's still there, still doing the thing, and he was put into the tournament, in a tournament where maybe that's it. You look at it and you're like, look, if Jay White was there, would we still have Chase Owens in this tournament? If Will Ospreay was there, would Chase Owens be in the tournament? Fair questions to ask. And I would say probably not. Probably wouldn't have the Gorillas of Destiny in it either. It's like these are fair questions. But this guy he sees the opportunity, he understands what he has in his hands, so he's just diving into it. He's like, I'm going to go all in. And he's working hard, surprising pretty much anyone who's sitting down to pay attention to his matches. So to me, him getting a win over Hiroshi Tanahashi kind of makes sense. Because then again, maybe you're new to the concept of tournament wrestling and the story that is told throughout a tournament. Because you have one guy who has been on fire since the start and just has been, he's missed a couple of opportunities for wins. He let a couple slip by. Couldn't quite pull out the big win. But eventually he is going to, and that's how Chase is being booked. And as I said, let's not forget this idea of bodies being banged up, of being midway through a grueling tournament, a grueling round robin, which the wrestlers themselves say that it's hard. The G1 is a hard tour to get through. And this is a shoot. But if you want to kayfabe it on top of that, Hiroshi Tanahashi, getting up there in years, not the guy he used to be, the knees. At some point, you have to tell a logical story where this guy at some point is just going to be like, well, I just can't do it. This one here this one slips through my fingers, and it's going to be an under guy. It's going to be Chase Owens coming out of nowhere. And you know what this does? It adds unpredictability to this tournament. It adds a little something to this tournament, which by God it needs. Keep you on your toes. Because it's not as if the action has been bell to bell. 4.5 5-star matches. Give us a little something to get. This was the moment. I have not seen so much G1 talk as I saw today, as I saw with Chase Owens winning the match. I have not. So let's at least, let's have a little something for ourselves here, right? And like I said, he's been working hard. And there's there's been these reports about this Gaijin uprising, that happened in August, where the foreign wrestlers were all sort of pissed off at New Japan. They didn't understand the power structure, didn't know what was going on. Will Ospreay goes off, and I think it's one of the reasons a whole bunch of them were sent to the United States and were like, all right, go wrestle in America, kind of thing, just go. But Chase has been there in New Japan, hasn't left. I don't know if he's bitched or not. I don't know if he's complained. But he's still there. He's doing his job. And trust me when I tell you that when these types of situations happen and you have a guy who's sticking by the company and he's doing good by them, he gets rewarded. And if you can't handle that, you must be new to pro wrestling. Company guys, get the rub. And it's funny, because then I see, I even chuckle at some of the responses that were in favor of Chase Owens winning. Saying, nice to see Tanahashi putting over some of the young guys. I'm like, young guys? Chase has been in the company since 2014. He's 31 years old. Like, he's not what I call a young guy. Chase has fulfilled a role for New Japan since time immemorial. He's been the pin eater. He's that guy in the faction, Bullet Club in this case, who lies down and eats the pin for the other stars. When they do the 6-man tag matches, when they do the 8-man tag matches, or just the plain old tag teams. Kenny Omega and Chase Owens versus Kazuchika Okada and Kazuchika Okada and who was around back then? Hiroki Goto. There you go. Who do you think is eating the pin? SANADA and Tetsuya Naito versus Evil and Chase Owens. Who do you think is eating the pin? This is a thank you. This is unquestionably a thank you. And Chase Owens regarded it that way. That's how he treated it on social media. Went out there and he said, this is the biggest match of my career so far. It's the biggest win of his career so far. He beat the Ace in the G1. His first G1. I can't believe, it's very unbelievable to me that an underguy would defeat Hiroshi Tanahashi in 11 minutes cleaning the ring. This is the type of discussion that when you start talking about match length, this is a discussion that Chase Owens, unfortunately, will always lose. Whether he defeats Tanahashi in 11 minutes, 5 minutes, or 22 minutes, match length will never be sufficient. Will never be okay. 22 minutes, I can't believe that Hiroshi Tanahashi lasted 22 minutes against a jabron or vice versa, right? How did he stand 22 minutes against Hiroshi Tanahashi? These weird defenses. But my theory is these people who are shitting on the Chase Owens win, my theory is that most of them aren't even watching the G1. Because if you're watching the G1 31 in 2021, it makes sense. You will look at the progression of Chase Owens matches from night 1 to night 9, and you'll be like, yeah, okay, good for him. He was bound to win one, and he won one against the big guy of the company. And that's all that pisses people off. Well, no, it's not all that, but it pisses, for those who aren't perturbed by his speaking out allegations, this is what pisses them off, is that an underguy, a deeply rooted jabroni underguy, beat Hiroshi Tanahashi. When I'm like, fine, fantastic, give us some surprises, give us some storytelling. And then these are the same people who are like, give us some storytelling. You got some storytelling. Real, sports-based. You just have to pay attention. If you're not paying attention, it's going to fly right over your head. Hey, T-Bo Baggins. Well, if he wasn't underrated at this point, I think he's becoming that in the minds of a lot of people. The speaking out allegations are serious, though. I'd like some resolution around that because it does mar everything. And it avoids me from getting me personally, getting full on board on the Chase Owens train choo-choo. That's what's keeping me from getting full on board. And here's the rub. Here's something else. And when you think about it this way, it also makes sense. In New Japan, usually when you pin a champion in a tournament, you're lined up for a shot at the title. Well, Hiroshi Tanahashi right now is the IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. Chase Owens is a United States American. Setting that up a little down the road. Might not happen either. How many world title shots does Toru Yano have lined up? And he hasn't had a single one. Anyway, ultimately, just not to harp on it too much, but I'm convinced that most who are complaining about his loss weren't even watching the G1. I understand if you're not watching the G1. I get it. I understand it. New Japan's been rough. It's been rough this year. You're not into it, I get it. Then don't go off giving knee-jerk reactions to shit that you haven't even watched. It exposes you. Evil defeated Tama Tonga. Again, they all too sweet each other here. Bullet Club members, despite the House of Torture faction. Evil doesn't ask Tama Tonga, though, to lay down like he did Chase Owens. So, I think the pecking order is a little different here. But he does try to sucker him into his handshake, in which they do. And early on, Tama gets a nice Meng, a Meng style chop, as Evil is running the ropes, which was pretty cool. Togo and Evil sucker him into an exposed turnbuckle, which gets Evil into control. Tama uses his usual explosiveness, Stinger Splash, and he's really working the crowd in this match here. Tama's the babyface, and he's been working babyface pretty much throughout this tournament. But it's really easy to work babyface against Evil because everybody hates Evil. But he worked the crowd, he milked the reactions. Like he works as a babyface. Our boy Tama works as a babyface, and he had another good match as a babyface here. I think it should be in the cards here for him, if not a full-on babyface. A cool tweener, which is something that I think they are, but I feel like their reception is more of a heel because their heel tactics are a little too scummy at times. Evil goes for a sharpshooter, and Tama gets the Tongan death grip on him as he's doing it, which was pretty cool. And then Tama locks the sharpshooter on himself. They're in and out of holds at some point. Tama hits the Tongan twist. Big Death Valley Bomb as well. Hits the Angel Dive. And here's the thing. This match, as opposed to Evil's previous matches, I would go as far as to say, it didn't go to the floor as much. Stayed in the ring. One of the reasons was that Jado, I never know how to pronounce it. Jado, but the thing is that I do know it. That's how my brain works. Jado's around the ring, so he's keeping an eye on Dick Togo. And they're all in the same Bullet Club. They know how they work. And Jado's like, he literally keeps Togo out of shenaniganing here. So we actually get an interesting match here. Of course, Evil, rakes the eyes more times than not. And, it's a little overblown. But, this was fine. Right up until the fucking lights go out. I'm like, oh, no. Because I was entertained by it. Not the greatest match. Not a match where I'm saying, okay, guys, we're going into an all-time classic here. No, nothing like that. But, enough to be like, this bums me out. Because it was going really, really well. And when the lights come up, Dick Togo is using the garrote. And the ref has a ref bump. And Jado kendo sticks Togo to let go of the garrote. But Evil low blows Tama Tonga. He hits everything as Evil. They get the ref back in. He counts to 3. And you know who turned out the lights? Show, who has appeared, who's been moved over to Block B. Well, I mean, on the Block B shows, clearly. And I was wondering when they were going to start doing that. They were probably keeping Show, because Show did some matches on night A, and probably because of restrictions, or whatever, that they didn't want, they probably wanted to keep their A block and B block rosters very, very separate to sort of reduce cross contamination possibilities, just try to keep it to a bare minimum. That's why we saw a Show on night A, never on block A nights, never on block B nights. But there he is. He's there because he's the guy who turned off the light. And I was like, oh, So this is just going to make matters worse because now we have Dick Togo and we have Sho, and it's not all going to be Bullet Club members that they're going to be fighting moving forward. So, I mean, this was a fine match. It was a fine match until the end. It was entertaining. Tama Tonga continues to impress here. Jeff Cobb continues his rampage of destruction through a B block, by destroying our Lord Taichi. When I say our, I mean yours, because he's all right. He's fine. I'm just not as into him as a lot of people are. Taichi needs to go to the floor early on to get the upper hand here. Throws a kick and Cobb catches it. And he lifts Taichi from that position into an overhead release slam, which was just fantastic stuff. Jeff Cobb, ladies and gentlemen. Even starts, using some sumo techniques because Taichi is trained in sumo. Takes the time to taunt Taichi with that as well. Taichi tries to fight back with some kicks, but Cobb is just too dominant. Hits a spin cycle, covers, Taichi kicks out, Cobb goes right to the standing moonsault. It's like it. And it's effortless. That's the thing that's amazing. It's just so good. Taichi fights out of a tour of the islands, lands a huge kick, and then he he hits a backdrop driver. I'll say it that way. On Cobb, right into the mat. Just drops him right on his head. Fantastic stuff. It was a great segment. Jumping enziguri right on Cobb's face. He tries for Black Mephisto. He fails. He eats some strikes. He avoids the tour of the islands with a big clothesline. But Cobb avoids a Black Mephisto, dodges a kick, German suplexes Taichi, who walks into a tour of the islands. Great finish. And I, again, just love this idea of the tour of the islands just being this thing that he can, that Cobb can pull out of nowhere. Again, it's devastating. It has this air of spontaneity. Like, it doesn't have a convoluted setup like grabbing a guy and putting him up onto your shoulders and then, locking an arm and then bringing down the head to then drive him between your legs. Nothing convoluted like that. Just out of nowhere, and it's fantastic. And it looks like $1 million because Jeff Cobb is a huge guy who shouldn't be spinning around like that. Good, super strong match. I liked it a lot. I really liked Night 10. I thought Night 10 was a fun evening of pro wrestling. Goto defeating Yoshihashi was another one that surprised me, both in the result and the match itself. This was all Yoshihashi, and here's the thing, right? They're friends. They're stablemates in Chaos. They're tag team, 6-man tag team champions. Whatever that can entail to one's relationship, because the 6-man titles stink. Yoshihashi, man, he is all over the place in this match. He starts off hard, and they go to the floor, and Yoshihashi keeps the upper hand. He's on fire. Staying on top for a real long time in this match. I am stoked to see stats for this match, because Yoshihashi fire was lit under him. He even hits a Shoten Kai, which is one of Goto's big signature moves, right? And they start chopping the hell out of each other. And, they already spent, Goto was already spent because he ate so much damage, but, he's trying to push through it. They strong style each other on the mat. Goto's offense is barely working. He does hit a GTW, a Shoten Kai himself, followed by the GTR for the win. Weird, but okay. Weird, but okay. Because if there was one match where I was like, look, Yoshihashi wins here, he was dominant throughout. And I get the win. Like, Goto, more experienced, more... and they keep saying, Goto and the G1, the G stands for Goto. Well, the G doesn't stand for Goto, hasn't stood for Goto for a few years at this point. He's not the Goto from a couple of years ago when he plowed through it. We're a far cry from that guy now. He's not being pushed anymore. They're not doing anything with him. Yoshihashi, they're building him into this, this underdog, this guy who's scraping his way to victories, who has these, these strong, hard-fought battles like he had with a stablemate, with a friend, a guy he's in a team with, he tag teams with, and just beat the shit out of him. And he couldn't get the win. And I felt like, and the crowd is behind him. Again, I don't get it. I find Yoshihashi is, he has as much charisma as this pen. And this is a blue pen, and blue's my favorite color. I'm attracted to this pen. I look at this pen and I'm like, I like blue. This is the pen I want to write with. Like I look at, let's say, this array of pens that I have here, and I'm like, blue. That's the one I want. I think this pen has more charisma than Yoshihashi because I'd pick this pen. Wouldn't pick Yoshihashi if you gave me 3 wrestlers. If that analogy made sense at all. I don't know. I don't listen to myself talk. What do you want from me? The point here is that if there was one moment to give Yoshihashi a win, this was it. Because it's not as if this win is going to help Goto here. Because I effectively, I think commentary mentioned him. Goto is the first guy eliminated from the tournament. I'm like, what, really? And I look at the board here, right? And our boy Goto here, he lost to Jeff Cobb and he lost to Okada. So even if in this completely improbable scenario that both Jeff Cobb and Kazuchika Okada lose all of their remaining matches, and Hiroki Goto wins all of his matches so we can go tie both these guys, he's still not moving on. Because they hold the tiebreakers on him. So effectively, I didn't write him out here right now, but because I think there's still a level of probability. We'll see what happens on the next night. On night 13? 12? 11? Warren. I think it would have been a little more compelling in the block to have Yoshihashi at 4. I think Goto at this point, Goto was spent. Goto's done. There's no way he's coming back from this loss. He's mathematically probably, but there are too much variables that he can't control. That's all. But this was good. This was a strong match. Super strong. Would I dare say this was my favorite match of the evening? I think so. It's a toss-up between that one and the Jeff Cobb Taichi match, and I think this one edges it out a little more because the work was there. They worked so, not that the others didn't, but I think there was another notch here. There was more emotion to it. Goto Yoshihashi, man, it was good stuff. It was a good, strong professional wrestling match from 2 guys that I didn't expect it. Again, that's, I'm kind of getting the feelings that I got watching the first 4 nights of the G1 this year, where I'm like, everyone's working hard. There's a lot of matches here, a lot of guys here that I don't have any emotional investment in, but by God, they're making me believe here. This was one of them here. It was good stuff. Main event was Kazuchika Okada defeating SANADA. No big shocker here. And it is pretty much the match that you imagine an Okada-SANADA match to be. SANADA, I found, got himself together. And, he wasn't as He wasn't as all over the place as he was with Tanahashi a couple of nights ago. This was a solid New Japan main event from two guys. Well, one guy who is one of the best in the world, one of the greatest of all time, and the other guy is the other guy being Sonata, of course. Just make sure we're clear. Sonata, who can, when it's either the switch is on or it's halfway off. It's never really off. I don't want to be unfair to him. Either he's working at 10 or, like a 6.57. And he was in good shape. He was in good form. Everything clicked. They went over 25 minutes. But this is, I want to say too many things at once. Sonata here in this match, the bit of the story is that at some point he does a landing and he tweaks his knee, right? And Okada sort of uses that to his advantage. And again, this is emphasizing the ruthlessness of Kazuchika Okada, Rainmaker Okada. All he wants is to win the tournament. And he doesn't care how it's going to happen, but he's going to win the tournament because he's the Rainmaker. He's the best fucking wrestler in the world. So he has a fantastic match here, with Sonata himself. Okada even at some point, he does the money clip, tries to get that in. Kevin Kelly, meanwhile, is emphasizing not saying it using those exact words, but he's saying, the money clip is a transitional move now. He didn't say transitional, but that's what it meant. He uses it now to set up the landslide, the Tombstone Piledriver, and the Rainmaker. Money clip era Kazuchika Okada is done. I think, when Okada starts using the money clip as a finisher, I think that means that he's not in a good headspace. I think he's depressed. He needs to talk to someone. He needs to get on his meds, whatever. Clearly, this is much better. Much better version of Okada. So yeah, so my point is that's what I was getting at. He's doing the money clip, and that's not working. And at some point, he does the surprise sit down cradle that he used a couple of nights ago on I want to say, who did he use it on 2 nights ago? Was it on Evil? I can't remember. Or was it on Yoshihashi? He just sat down. That's so I was like, oh, but and they got me on that one because I thought he was going to get a win. It seemed plausible. And Sonata kicked out of it. That's good. Sonata rolls out of a shotgun dropkick towards the end, eats a German suplex, and rolls out of a Rainmaker attempt into a roll-up, and he rolls up Okada, and I thought, I bought into it too. I was like, oh, we're done. Oh, okay. So now Sonata avoids a dropkick, but runs into the landslide, followed by the Rainmaker. Sonata's done, and he's mad at himself after. Like, he's disappointed. He's like, I should have won this. Why is Okada always such a fucking hump? Why is it always a struggle against Okada every single time? And commentary doing, again, their legendary work, telling us, these guys came up together, they had different paths, they have the same type of work ethic, so on and so forth, but Okada is such light years away from where Sonata's career is, that Sonata, it has to eat at Sonata every day. And look at what we see here. We see him with his, I wouldn't call him a rival, but maybe an unrequited rival, if that's possible. You've heard of unrequited love. Why not have an unrequited rivalry with someone? Someone that you personally you have animosity towards, but the other guy's like, whatever. It's like that one episode of The Simpsons, right? With the grimy dude, who's got this rivalry against Homer Simpson, but Homer Simpson's like, he ends up doing shitty things to Grimy, but he doesn't realize it because he's Homer Simpson, whatever. But Grimy, harbors this grudge, There you go. Look, that's how things are going. This is how things are happening, and it is fantastic. Good main event to climb out of these. To climb out of night 10, which was actually very good. Oh, and hello, Kristen Ashley, the first lady of the MrWarrenHayes show. Yeah, no, I'm all right, darling. Don't have to worry about me. I'm okay. Yeah, and Thibaut in the chat says, New Japan dropped the ball on SANADA a couple of years back. I felt, I think a couple of years ago, I was a big SANADA. I was super pro SANADA. Wanted him to be, pushed as a singles, keep him away from Evil, the tag team. We're good. Give this guy the spotlight, the shine, and they did give it to him. But I think he's his own worst enemy in certain circumstances. I think he's a little sloppy at times. Other times, and I say this often, I get it that his character is supposed to be aloof, emotionless, kind of like a Dean Malenko. His nickname is the Cold Skull. He's a nice man type of guy. I get that, but at some point you do want, palpable emotions. You want things that that can make him relatable to you. You want him to get mad. He's always going like this to the audience, pointing to his ear and, hey, cheer for me, everyone. But it's like, yeah, but that's not a crowd connection, It's not the same. It's not the same. So I don't know. I don't know what they could have done more or better or less with SANADA today. Like back then, I think they tried. But I mean, he's a safe worker. He's a smart worker. His body's not coming apart. The boy can have a career renaissance at any given moment. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, Kazuchiko Okada gets another 10 points. Let's look at our standings here. Jeff Cobb and Okada both at the top with 10 points. So both of them in the double digits. First two guys to hit the double digits. Evil coming up in third place with, or second place, depending on one. 8 points for Evil, 6 for Hiroshi Tanahashi. Taichi and SANADA are at 4. Tamatonga, Yoshihashi, Chase Owens, and Hiroki Goto all closing up the block at 2 points apiece. So this is what's interesting. And if you look at both blocks right now, this is what's really interesting here is that block A, that's what I was saying earlier. There are many, many more possibilities for, upsets or weird, out of the blue comebacks, or the balance can still shift. Nothing is in stone here. You got 4 guys at 8 points, and you've got 3 guys at 6. And since the scoring is still relatively low, well, Yujiro and Tongaloa still have a possibility to make a dent, or at least act as a spoiler for other people, right? So there's a lot of stuff that still can be done here. When you get to block B, though, you've got 2 runaway mastodons right now. Jeff Cobb, Okada. They're going to the end. That's the big final matchup of the block before we go to finals. Unquestioned. I don't see. This is how they're both being built. They're being built to go on a collision course. I don't know why it'd be anything else than that. Evil is in there because he can essentially be the Jay White of years past, where he's sort of hanging around, then all of a sudden, boop, he gets this spurt, and he goes and robs, a spot from another guy. I hope that doesn't happen, because as opposed to Jay White, I think Evil stinks. Not stinks, but he's not as capable as Jay White, as both a heel and a wrestler. I think Jay White is the perfect package. Evil, not so much, but you can feel that's what they're doing. Tanahashi at 6, he's still in the game. But we're kind of feeling like, the question is, can he still manage? Can he still go through with it? But he's not out of it by any chance But then you start getting down to Taichi, Sanada at 4 points. Their chances of winning the block are not as good. But all the guys who are at 2 right now, Tama Tonga, Yoshihashi, Chase Owens, Hiroki Goto, I think they're done. Like, I mathematically, and if you want to start pulling out scenarios, right, they still all have a chance. I really do believe Hiroki Goto, like I was mentioning earlier. I think he's done. I think he's done because, like I said, even if he does manage to tie Cobb and Okada, he lost to both of them. Right? I'm just looking at my notes here. Yeah, exactly. He lost to both of those guys. And look, Cobb, right now, as it stands, Cobb has to go through Evil, right? Which is technically probably the biggest match. No, and he still has to go through Tanahashi. Okay, so like Cobb still has 2 big time players that he still has to go through, right? There's no reason for Jeff Cobb to not there's no reason for Jeff Cobb to not defeat Sanada at this point. Cobb's final outing here of his last few matches. Look, he's got Evil, he's got Okada, he's got Sanada, he's got Tanahashi. That is a rough one. If you wanted to see him start sliding down, it would be possible. It's logical because he's got the big guys left. Okada on his hand, well, of course, he's got Cobb. That's fine. But he's got Chase Owens. But then again, now Chase Owens is in a bit of a spoiler position. Now people are like, maybe Owens could pull one off here. And he just beat the ace of New Japan. Why couldn't he go after Okada? Maybe. Then Okada's got Taichi and Tama Tonga. Again, these are all matches. When you pause and you look at them and you look at how Okada's being booked and how he's being treated right now, there's no reason for Okada to not smoke these guys. In my opinion, Okada is going to have a perfect. He's going to be biting 1,000 in this G1. If you look at what's left, and I still think he's defeating Jeff Cobb at the end, and I still think they're going to keep Jeff Cobb strong. What you have to do at this point, or what I think what they're going to do is establish Jeff Cobb as a force. And if Okada is going to be at the top of his game, he has to defeat the other guy who's just been tearing through the division, tearing through the block. I think Block B is wrapping up. I think this is the direction that they're going. Evil probably win a couple, will try to spoil, but will not be able. But effectively, I think right now, Hiroki Goto I think he's officially eliminated. I don't think he can come back from this. I don't think Chase Owens, Yoshihashi, and Tama Tonga can come back, period. I think they're out of the running. It'd have to be a disaster run moving forward for them to get to the finals. A disaster run from the people who are on top now. Jeff Cobb, Okada, Evil. I wouldn't necessarily consider who does Tanahashi have left? See, Tanahashi has Cobb left, and I think that can go. Like I said, I think Cobb is gonna gobble him up. Tanahashi has Evil. That could go either way if you ask me. He's got Taichi. Again, they've had multiple back and forth matches. And he's got Yoshihashi as well, which I think Yoshihashi is just going to be there to eat the pin. So 2, maybe 4 points more for Tanahashi. Maybe. Evil still has Goto. He's got Sanada. He's got Tanahashi and Cobb. Again, 2, maybe 4. Maybe 6. I could see him going over Tanahashi with shenanigans. Sanada, Goto. That's the thing with this Bullet Club nonsense, right? The House of Torture. Excuse me. Okada and Cobb. That's where we're going. Anyway, rest in peace, Hiroki Goto's G1 run this year. That one is done. They really have to stop with the G and G1 stands for Goto. That ship has sailed, brother. Well, my ship has sailed too. I'm about to wrap this up for tonight. For this edition of the recap, the G1 31 recap. Thank you all for tuning in live, for listening on demand, for watching on demand, podcasts, YouTube. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, hey, thank you. And why don't you go ahead and tell us, why don't you give me a review? If you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, leave a comment, chat with me. It's all good stuff. It's always good stuff. I will be back. Oh, wait. We haven't. The next 2 nights that are coming up, right? We're not done. What am I talking about? As if I'm having a night off here. October 7, we're going to be back with A block matches. This, by the way, is going to be the night that Hiromu Takahashi is going to take on Kenta in a non-block match, which is pretty dope. Kota Ibushi versus Tanga Loa is going to happen. I think Ibushi is going to pick up a win here. Zack Saber Jr. versus Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Pimp. Which, again, I think Zack is going to pick up a win. Toru Yano against Shingo. Shingo has to win here. It can't be a disaster G1 for him. And in the main event, Tomohiro Ishii versus the Gradocon. I'd like Gradocon to pick up a big win here. A big main event win. Some promising matches on that card. I'm really looking forward to it. Then Friday, October 8th, we're back with B Block. Yoshihashi versus Tamatanga. Sure. I mean, this is, it's the 2-pointers at this point. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Other than the fact that, if Tama and Yoshihashi work like they did on night 10, this is going to be a blast. Hiroki Goto will be taking on Chase Owens. Again, it doesn't matter. SANADA versus Jeff Cobb should be pretty good too. Jeff Cobb is my pick. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Evil. I think Evil is going to pick up a win here. And in our main event, Kazuchika Okada taking on Taichi. The Rainmaker takes care of our Lord Taichi. And when I say our, I mean yours. It should be a lot of fun. Thank you, Tebow, for predicting that all this ends in a Yoshihashi versus Yujiro final. Yujiro wins and ushers in the pimp age of New Japan Pro Wrestling. God bless us all. So, and I'll be back on Friday to recap these next 2 New Japan nights. So, subscribe to the channel if you want to get all these tasty notifications as to when I go live and all that stuff. So there you go. Thank you all again for joining me tonight, and keep enjoying the G1. We'll see you soon.